Welcome to Candidate Conversations. I'm Maurice DuBois.
And I'm Marcia Kramer. From ending gun violence to pandemic recovery, the next mayor of New York City will have a lot on his plate. We're just 1 week away from the election that will decide who that will be.
And for the next 2 days, we are having live, in-depth conversations with each candidate, asking them questions so you can prepare and compare before you vote. And joining us today is Democratic candidate Eric Adams. Mr. Adams, good to have you with us. Welcome.
Good to see both of you. You know, the two of you have interviewed and followed me for many years.
Decades.
All right. Don't try to butter us up here as we get started. All right. We're going to get right into it. There's a lot of ground to cover here in the next half hour. So you claim that you end each day with a diary entry in which you ask yourself, how did you drop the ball, Eric? You ask yourself these questions. How did you blow it? So what was your entry last night? What did you say?
Well, the rain and being prepared for the storm. When I finished, did an analysis. Did we do anything differently? What would I do better? How would I respond? Not to send out a fear, but to let New Yorkers know we got this, it's under control. And I made an entry as I drove around the city to see what would I have done differently and communicated to New Yorkers.
And what would that have been?
Number one, I say this over and over again. We can't have a scatter and pray mindset. Just as we do with terrorism, there should be levels based on the storm that's about to hit the city. If it's a level 1, a major storm, which highways we should close, who we should notify. We didn't see that. We didn't see a universal, you know, should we have a travel advisory to get cars off the road? That's the type of communication we need.
You're a former cop, a former Republican, a former lawbreaker who was beaten by cops, a lot of formers. Just who exactly is the current Eric Adams right now?
Well, I say this all the time, Maurice. I'm perfectly imperfect. And I'm evolving. I'm evolving as a man. I'm evolving as a dad. I tell my son that all the time. And I'm going to evolve no matter what. I'm a person that I'm not looking for perfection. That's not a humanistic characteristic. I'm looking for dedication. I'm committed to the city. Every area of my journey has shown a 35 uninterrupted years of commitment to the city. There are days I didn't want to get out of bed and wish I didn't, but there were days I was happy I got out of bed because I did some great things in the process.
So, Eric, public safety and fixing the police department is really one of your top priorities. But because of your activism over the years, let's just say you have a number of enemies in the NYPD. So I wonder what you're going to do about that. Will you get rid of them? Will you move them to out-of-the-way assignments? How is that going to be part of your new day in the NYPD?
And that's just a big misnomer. You know, think about what the police unions did. They didn't endorse other candidates. You know, Pat Lynch, the DEAs, all of them stated that when Eric was in the police department, we may have disagreed with him, but we agreed with him that
so
he
you don't have a hit
safety.
list?
No, I don't. What do you? Why? You know, I'm like Abe Lincoln and having all those who were your opponents come together, you know, team of rivals. We could learn so much from each other. America and New York has had enough of the fights between groups.
So the city is now offering people to get, city employees to get a mandated vaccine, $500, a bonus to municipal employees to get the shot. But out of fairness, do you think that teachers and other people who work for the city should be given that same bonus because they stepped up to the plate and they got the shot?
Well, you know, it's almost like, you know, you missed the sale. You know, you can't go back. If Macy does a sale, you can't go back and say, whoever bought those pants 2 years ago, now you're going to get the discount. You know, listen, and my hat's off to those New Yorkers that understand we can't go back. I remember the morgues in front of hospitals. I remember family members dropping off loved ones. And whatever we need to do to get people vaccinated, that's our most potent weapon. And whatever we need to do, I want people vaccinated. We can't go back to the devastation of our city and our economy.
Is 500 a fair number?
Whatever it is.
It sounds like a lot of money at the end of the day.
I wish I would have got that $500. I could use it.
Given the new cannabis laws in New York, should the city have the right to drug test city employees? We're talking cops, firefighters, correction officers, especially teachers here. Should we test them before they get the job and during their employment if they seem to be high on the job?
If they appear to be high on the job, yes. But testing them before and after, I say no to that.
Why not?
The law is illegal. The cannabis law is illegal in the state, and we're going to figure out how we're going to do it in New York. But it's the law, and we need to respect the law. Now, we need to make it clear. You driving a truck, you can't be smoking a joint. You getting ready to do an operation. You getting ready to go on duty. The same guidelines we have for drinking alcohol while on duty, those are the guidelines we should have for marijuana as well.
So your opponent, Curtis Lewa, is accusing you of basically being Bill de Blasio 2.0. I'm wondering, is he right? But also, what are the 6 degrees of separation between you and Bill de Blasio? What are his strengths and what are his weaknesses?
Well, if you do an analysis, you know that's not accurate. And right now, you know, being desperate, you're going to just say any and everything. That's just the antics of my opponent. It's clear we differ.
So you're not Bill de Blasio's teammate, like he says 100 times a day?
I say this over and over again. He walked in his pair of shoes. I'm going to bring my own. And I have my way of governing in a real way that I think in some areas we're similar, in some areas we're different. Listen, let's take our hat off to the fact of what he did with pre-K. I know what it is not to get a quality education.
So that's a strength. What's a weakness?
Well, a couple of things I believe are weakness. We did not go into government and find the inefficiencies that I believe we should do. It's clear that we are wasting taxpayers' dollars and we're producing an inferior product every day. And we're not aligned as a city. Remember, cities are made up of agencies. If those agencies are not producing a qualitative product, then our tax dollars are being wasted, and we're not doing that. We increased our budget by almost $20 billion. We have ballooned to almost a $98.7 billion budget. That's just not acceptable to run this city. We can find the fat and mismanagement.
Do you have an idea where that fat might be?
In many areas. Number one, overtime in the New York City Police Department. You go to parades, you see large number of police officers congregating. Many of them are on overtime. We could have public safety at the right cost. And we look at how we do goods and services and procurement. Some of our contracts in the Department of Education. Why are we still having the same contracts when 65% of black and brown children never reach proficiency in our city, but we still hire the same people? That makes no sense to me.
You said bigger budget, inferior product. What do you mean, inferior?
Well, the number I just gave you. We are spending large sums of money to do things. In NYCHA, we spend billions of dollars in NYCHA. Is NYCHA cleaner? Is it safer? Have we dealt with the eroding aspects of NYCHA? We spend billions of dollars in the Department of Education. That's our largest budget. But every year we have the same group of students from the same demographics in the same schools that's not reaching proficiency. We do nothing for dyslexia training, screening. We do nothing around giving parents the support they deserve. So health and hospital, primary care can't be the emergency room or an urgent care center. So the money we're spending, taxpayers are not getting their money's worth.
So it sounds like there's much more than 6 degrees of separation between you and Bill de Blasio.
Well, it's just a different mindset, and I'm learning from him. I'm learning from previous mayors, sitting down with previous mayors, previous deputy mayors, and saying, how do we get it right? Where did you drop the ball? And how do we do it right? Homelessness. The mayor admits himself, we should have done better than homelessness. I want to know from him, where did you drop the ball? How can I be better at it?
Does he admit that he dropped the ball, and does he tell you how?
Yes, he stated that he could have done better. I think that we could have used the dollars that came from our mental health, because when you see street homelessness, you're talking about those with mental health illnesses. We should have zeroed in on that, rebuild trust, looking at our subway system and other places where people are sleeping on the streets. That's not dignified to be able to sleep on the street or in the subway system.
When it comes to the mentally ill homeless, should the law be changed to forcibly take them off the streets? Because right now that's not the law.
Yes.
Take them off the streets and give them the care that they need, because we can all see it. They need care.
Maurice, you're in the area that many of us, we want to figure this out. And I had lunch yesterday with the mayor of San Francisco, and we need to re-examine that law. I know my friends from the ACLU would say we can't compel people to do so, but we have to be honest with ourselves. A person that can't take care of him or herself, they're living on the streets, terrible conditions. They're using the emergency room as primary care. They are creating actions on the subway system. We need to give them the support. Some people are not going to make that decision. We need to make sure our law allows us, like using the Kendra's law. The Kendra's law, where judges can make this determination. They haven't made it.
Right.
So, you know, you've aligned yourself with bike advocates, even riding a bike to a press conference, which we watched the other day. But I wonder what kind of a message that sends to the tens of thousands of people in New York who are terrified to walk on the streets because of people on bicycles, scooters, e-bikes. They feel the rules of the road don't apply to these people because they ignore red lights, one-way streets, even bike lanes. They say it's bike bedlam. What will you do when you become mayor, if you become mayor, excuse me, to crack down on bike violators? And should they have license plates to make it easier for police officers to go after them?
Everyone has to follow the law. That's the bottom line, you know.
But that's not going on in the city right now. You know that.
Without a doubt. And that's why you ask what I do.
So what would you do?
On Eric Adams' rule, we're going to, you can't have crash fatalities with bikes and cars and not have enforcement. Enforcement has dropped. Once you set the right tone, that you can't drive an ATV on our sidewalks, that you can't ride bikes up and down the streets anywhere and on the sidewalk, scooters. The city has reached.
But what about just going the right way on a one-way street?
And I 100% with you. I follow the bike laws. I follow the rules. I enjoy biking.
But not everybody does that.
That's why you have to do the proper enforcement.
So what's the proper enforcement?
Some of that enforcement is about giving people warnings. You know, you take that information, you log it in a centralized database that you receive a warning. Second time, it's coming with a citation or it's coming with a ticket.
And
let's use technology.
What's the right fee? What's the right ticket?
The dollar amount could be anywhere from $50 to $100. You want to send the right message. We want safe streets, not only from vehicles and vehicle crashes, but from those who are using other methods of transportation outside of
Should bikes have license plates?
No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that they need license plates. If you are a rider, because let's say you have license plates and you stop someone that they do not own the bike, that's not connecting to the person that's violating the rule. But if you stop someone and you use a centralized database that you did an infraction, you give them a warning summons, a warning, you could put that information into a handheld that is centralized. So if another officer stops them for the same thing, now they get a citation.
So would you use police officers to do that, or would you use traffic enforcement agents to do that? Who's the right person?
Combination. Police personnel and traffic enforcement. A combination. But again, we're going to be dealing with a centralized system, so the same handheld information that the traffic enforcement agent has, the police officer has as well, the Department of Sanitation employee will have as well. The name of the game is identify those who are breaking the law so that they will be held accountable.
You're going to put bike riders on notice. Day one?
Day one, because I'm one of them. Okay. I have to follow the rules, and we can't advocate for vehicle crashes to stop when we add to it by creating a dangerous environment. Because people are frightened if someone is speeding on a bike path, in a scooter or a bike, they're still as frightened. We need safe streets for everyone.
Terrifying, like the Wild Wild West, literally.
It really
is out there. All right, so should Mayor de Blasio repay the city the $320,000 for the NYPD police detail that he took on the presidential campaign trail? And if he should pay it, how would you make that happen? How would you enforce that?
Well, first we need to look at what is case history, because others have left the city, others have done other things. What's the case history? And if the case history states that mayor pay when they leave the city to do visits or any other activity, then the mayor should pay it. If that's not the case history, we can't treat one mayor differently than we have treated others. And the NYPD makes a determination on the level of threat of a mayor and his family or any New Yorker, and I trust them in the decisions that they make.
So let's talk about congestion pricing.
Yes.
Is there anyone who should get an exemption or a discounted rate once congestion pricing goes into effect? Teachers, cops, firefighters, people who ride motorcycles, they've been lobbying to get an exemption. And I wonder also, since people who want to duck congestion pricing are planning to park above 60th Street, do you think there should be any kind of residential parking permit issued to people who actually live above 60th Street, both east and west sides, so that they can have their own streets?
First of all, I say yes to exemptions. And my exemption list are those who must go to a certain location in the congestion pricing zone. You go to chemotherapy. You have no other choice. You have to ride there. You can't take the subway. We need to exempt you. There are real legitimate reasons. That's something we should sit down and analyze, because this is new. We've never had this before in our city, and we need to be open, not to be rigid, but how do we encourage a fairness across the board. Because what I don't want to happen, those who are affluent able to build in the cost of congestion prices to drive in the city, and we're ignoring those who can't. I would change truck deliveries to do it earlier and incentivize earlier delivery. So we need to look at who's exactly going to be exempted or discounted.
I see part of that problem is the fact that the law says you have to raise $1 billion a year. So the more people you give exemptions to, the higher the rate has to be in order to hit that $1 billion target. So are you going to be judicious in that, or are you going to try to be liberal in that?
Well, if you are driving as a luxury and not a necessity, then you need to pay the cost to come into Manhattan. You need to pay the cost just as we come across our bridges. We have a real traffic issue in the city. High number of, taxis, Uber, Lyfts. People are driving in one vehicle. We could incentivize if people ride in carpools, 4 people riding together. So there are things we can do. You come across the bridges now, we try to get incentives in that areas, but that's a luxury with the best transportation system on the globe is in central of Manhattan. There's no reason. Let's make it safe, affordable, dependable, and people will take that transportation system.
So what about residential parking permits?
The jury's still out with me on residential parking permits. Do you want to do that? There are very few places in the city, if any at all. I can't even remember any communities that currently have it. People have asked for it in different parts of the city. I don't know if I'm a believer in residential parking permits.
Just that so many people are worried that, for example, people might be coming in from, say, New Jersey, and they might decide to come over the GW Bridge and park above 60th Street and take the parking spaces that other people who live in the city may feel entitled to.
And I like a more residential parking permit for New Yorkers. If you're coming from New Jersey, Connecticut, and you see those plates, then that's fine. But it's difficult for me to say to someone that lives in Harlem or the Bronx, if you park on a city street close to the business area, that you're going to be taxed again. The jury's still out.
I have a feeling that Governor Murphy isn't going to like it.
I like Governor Murphy. We had lunch together.
What about the people who live in the congestion zone? They have cars?
Yes.
And do they have to pay to come back home? I mean, should they be exempt as well?
Let me tell you, Maurice, we have the best subway system in central Manhattan and bus. No one has a real reason outside of impairments. If you live in Manhattan, you can take a train anywhere you want. And even the commissioners, Eric Adams as a mayor, my commissioners, they can forget about those cars as they're moving around Manhattan. The best way to identify the needs of our transportation system is if you swipe that Metro card and you're on that train with everyone else.
Okay, you're on record. All right, we've been inundated with requests on our social media to ask you about the 250,000 retired city workers who say they were sold out by the mayor and the unions, who changed their health benefits to a plan that they say shortchanges them. Can you undo that plan that the mayor just announced?
Well, it's in a different place. Right now, there's a court suit, as you know, that's taking place right now, and they're going to make the determination on some basic aspects of it. I think where the ball was dropped was the lack of communication. And, I'm a retiree. That's my plan, So when I hear about that plan, right? So we need to really dig into it, give information to the public, make sure that those retirees understand what the plan is about. Let's take the fear factor out.
They say it's about paying more per month, right? Right off the bat. We need to be
clear on that. Some of that may be a lack of clarity in explaining the plan, and that's what I want to do. I want to make sure we take some time and explain to our retirees, this is what this new plan looks like. Here's our crisis. Healthcare costs are now going through the roof, and many of our private, so-called private hospitals, the numbers they are charging are extremely high. We need to really examine the cost of health care. We're going to bankrupt our society if we don't get health care under control.
So let me ask you this question. Once Rikers Island is closed, what should be done with the land? Now, how about turning it into a vast urban farm where you could raise vegetables, you could even have jobs for the homeless, you could put bunkhouses there for people to live? How do you like that idea?
Now, you're going right to my heart. And it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Why are we getting our fruits and vegetables from other parts of the country? Technology is showing. I did a plan with NYU Business Center and Cornell University, the Urban Agenda, Agricultural Report. We can grow our food, fruits and vegetables right here, hydroponics, greenhouses.
So Rikers Island Farms?
Listen, I'm open to that. I think that we should put out RFPs and ask people. We can teach children how to grow healthy food. We can deal with the crisis of eating bad food. We could have employment. We can actually start shipping food to other parts of the country.
You could have chickens, cows.
Well, you're not going to get the chicken and cows with me.
No chickens and cows. Right. I know you're a vegetarian.
Right.
But
you're right. I agree with you.
I mean, the question really goes to an interesting level, because there's going to be a lot of people who would like to have that land. Developers want the land. The people who want to extend the runway at LaGuardia Airport want the land. But why not do something creative like that?
I love the idea, and it's something I would be open to. And I think that it would solve, one solution must solve a multitude of problems. We can solve employment issues. We can solve environmental issues. We can solve healthy food issues. That's an upstream mindset. And so I'm open to see realistically, because we have to look at that soil. I'm hearing that there's some problems with the soil, so there may come a large...
Truck in good soil.
Right.
Fertilizer.
So we have to factor all of that in.
If you had cows, they could help fertilize it too.
Rikers Island tomatoes.
Or the Adams Farm. It could be the Adams Farm.
The Adams family farm. All right.
But I love that concept. We need to use rooftops to do vertical farming. That's a great place we could have a major farm and really have an industry of healthy food.
But also, wouldn't it also help to create jobs for people who may be unskilled but could learn a skill?
Yes, yes. You know, you don't need a master's degree to plant a tomato.
There you go.
Are there any people or commissioners from the current de Blasio administration that you might keep, or are you just going to send them all packing?
It would be foolish to do that because there's some institutional knowledge. We're going to sit down. We have a pre-transition team together of some dedicated, committed New Yorkers. What I am looking for is something you rarely hear in government. Yes, I want you to be academically smart, but I want you to be emotionally intelligent. How compassionate are you? How do you think? What type of person are you? We don't look at that. Major CEOs and corporations are now analyzing the emotional intelligence of their leaders because they realize companies do better when you have leaders that are emotionally intelligent. That's what I want from my commissioners. I don't want you to give me all your degrees and tell me how smart you are. How do you treat people as human beings that they want to follow you, and you don't see that? So there's some commissioners that may meet that criteria, and there's maybe those that don't. And if you don't fit into that overall plan of moving our city forward and doing things differently, then you're not a fit for me.
We're looking for names. Who comes to mind?
No names thus far, and it would be unfair to do that when many of them are still employed. But we have our little list together of what we're looking for in all of these areas. As the Daily News reported today, we're doing our national search for a police commissioner. So we're excited about that.
Right.
So since we're on the nutrition thing.
Look at you. I got you now talking about healthy food.
Well, I'm into healthy food. I actually eat mostly vegetables myself. But anyway, would you try to pass Michael Bloomberg's big gulp soda tax, or tell people that drinking sugary drinks is not good for you? And would you try to tax people who want to buy it?
It's interesting what we talk about Michael. People talk about Michael Bloomberg, about that big gold tax. They don't talk about the fact that we had a 3-year life expectancy rate increase under Bloomberg. They don't talk about what he did with the cigarette bans inside restaurants that saved the lives of restaurant employees.
He did a lot, too.
He did a lot. And so when I talk with him about that and say, what could I have done differently?
So would you have advised him to try to sell it in a different way?
Yes, yes. And I learned from him on the ground, similar to what I did in Brooklyn. People say young people want to eat junk food in school. I went to the young people and said, this is what that food is doing to you, and showed them how making good tasting food, growing their food, they push the issue. You need ground up buy-in to say, this is what we want. New Yorkers, you tell New Yorkers don't do something, they double it.
So is there a possibility that under Mayor Eric Adams, should you become mayor, there would be a soda tax?
we would look at ways of how to decrease the consumption of sugary drinks. That's the enemy to health in the city. So we will get young people engaged. We will give them the information, the knowledge, and allow them to go among their peers to say, this is what we want. Think about this for a moment. You would walk into a meeting years ago, and all you would see is all of the sugary items and drinks. Now, that's the oddity. You see flavored water, seltzer water. You see water all over the place.
What are school lunches going to look like?
Again, ground up, you know.
Well, what kind of foods? Is there going to be vegan options at the city schools?
Healthy options. So, Maurice, we spend millions of dollars in the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene fighting childhood obesity, diabetes, and asthma. Yet every day we feed our children 960,000 meals that cause childhood obesity, diabetes, and asthma. So what we must do, we can't have sugary chocolate milk, sugar contents. We should not have, we should have default options that children can choose from, some great tasting food. That is what we should be focusing on. Make food healthy and tasty so our children can embrace it. So we're going to re-examine the food that we are serving to see, is it feeding our healthcare crisis, childhood obesity, diabetes, and other issues.
But you didn't answer my question about whether about the soda tax. Like,
yes.
would you at some point, after you've educated people and you've talked to kids, ask restaurants to charge a minimal tax or a tax if people want to order sugary drinks?
Now, I'm not there yet, but I'm open to do whatever is needed to wean us off the overconsumption of sugary drinks. Now, think about this. What you do in the backyard, what you put on your grill, what you decide to drink at home, listen, you have that right. But I am not feeding the healthcare crisis. You won't have those sugary drinks in my schools, in my hospitals, in ACS, Department of Correction. Your tax dollars should not go to feeding the healthcare crisis.
I'm just curious what other ideas in terms of healthcare you and Mayor Bloomberg, former Mayor Bloomberg, have talked about, because I'm sure he has many more ideas for making people healthier. And if you'd like to share some of those with us.
Listen, I've come with my own healthcare idea.
You too.
Rarely do people talk about what I did at Bellevue Hospital, the oldest hospital in America. I had the first healthcare lifestyle medicine clinic in this country at Bellevue Hospital. Rarely do people talk about that. We had 700 people on the waiting list, where we are looking at chronic diseases and reversing those chronic diseases and giving people options. You know, so we're going to say to health in hospital, it's fine if you want to go to the traditional route, but people should have options on what type of response they want to their healthcare crisis.
Your opponent's big on animal rights and animal care. Should we shut down the zoos in the city and the aquarium? Just shut them down?
No.
Because it's cruel, no? Some say it's cruel.
I say no to that. I believe we must treat animals in a humane way. I believe that we can do things like those animals that need care. There's a way to do it, to have them in an environment, sanctuaries, to treat them in an appropriate way. I was in Albany. I led with one of the assembly persons. We led the caucus on animal rights. I believe in animal rights. We should not be inhumane to anyone. If our zoos were doing things that were inhumane, then we should zero in and make sure they stop. But there's mixed feelings on that. I think the experiences and education that children are learning from zoos is playing a role. I led the voice to get elephants out of circus. I met with Ringling Brothers and Barney Bailey Circus, and after meeting with me, they came back and said, listen, we're going to remove elephants and the mistreatment of elephants in our circus. So this is a place that I've been an advocate for, but I don't support Curtis' position.
So we have about 30 seconds left. Where do you stand on the City Council's legislation that would allow people with green cards to vote?
I think that it's a great idea. I don't think it's going to pass legal muster. Those who are legally here, we need to be clear on that. Legally here, they are paying taxes. They're doing what they're supposed to do. But according to my understanding, the law department states that that's not legal. It has to be done through the state. And I want to respect the law, whichever way the law department indicates could happen.
Okay, we're going to leave it right there. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
We really appreciate it. All right, and tomorrow we're going to sit down with candidate conversations with the Republican candidate, Curtis Sliwa. That is at 1 o'clock right here on CBS and New York. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maurice DuBois.
And I'm Marcia Kramer. Don't forget, early voting is underway in New York City and runs through the 31st. And Election Day, Eric is happy about that, is Tuesday, November 2nd. Make sure to get out and vote. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.